Nick Harris, Fort Worth Star-Telegram Cowboys reporter, joining us now to talk more as free agency continues to evolve. And a good afternoon, Nick. How the heck are you?
Man, can't complain, guys. It's been a busy week. Not something I say I maybe would have predicted, but it keeps us going. I've been excited by it.
Yeah, this is nice. And for anybody that missed it, Dante Fowler is back. 1 year, $6 million base, up to $8 million in incentive. Couple of other defensive linemen this week, couple of linebackers. Now, they do lose a Tank and Jay Lou. What do you think? Are they better than, at least on defense so far, than what they were last year?
Well, they're certainly putting pieces together on defense, and that's been the big strategy so far here in free agency. We talk about these 5 former first-round picks that they've added. All of them have come on the defensive side of the ball, and you can look at it in all 3 levels. Up front, it's Peyton Turner. It's now Dante Fowler Jr. Being factored in with the young guys that they have in that room to create some competition. At the second level, it's bringing in a experienced guy like Kenneth Murray that can play there in the middle. And then in the secondary, it's Kaiir Elam. Again, competition that you can add outside corner opposite of Deron Bland in the case that Trayvon Diggs cannot start the season. I still think you need help at a couple of those spots. I still think you need to go get a corner in this draft, maybe 2 of them. I still think you need a linebacker, but they have certainly put a lot of intention forward on filling depth needs on the defensive side of the ball. It has me thinking that come draft time, we're going to see Shoddy take a big role in drafting some of these offensive players with premium picks.
So what are you thinking about running back now then? They've added Miles Sanders and then, of course, Javonte Williams. Brian just gave us a scouting report, and I had talked with a scouting buddy in Carolina. The return doesn't sound great right now on Miles Sanders. Does that change the way they're viewing running back in the draft at all, in your opinion?
No, I don't believe so. It just adds veteran experience into that room, and it gives them a couple of options instead of having to, really rely on one guy. They did that last year. You look back, and I think they relied on Ezekiel Elliott, and I think they would tell you that they relied on Ezekiel Elliott maybe a little too much, and it bit them in the end. And they ended up having to reshuffle that room. And fortunately for them, Rico Dowdle stepped up and ended up being a 1,000-yard rusher. But that was more so luck than anything, being able to land on a guy like Rico in that sense. So having a guy like Miles Sanders, it allows some flexibility in that room. But I think also you look at training camp and how that position room might fill out. This is do or die for Deuce Vaughn. It's going to be his turn it's going to be his time to try to earn a roster spot and show that he can provide some value to the offense.
Nick, it doesn't seem like the Cooper Kupp stuff is going to unfold, but do you feel like they're serious about trying to go get one of these veteran wide receivers that's still on the market?
Yeah, they've toyed around with, talking within the market, but I don't know how serious they're going to be for some of these guys, whether it be a Stephon Diggs or a Keenan Allen. I think this is probably one of those situations where they wait until the market kind of bottoms out, and if there's a guy still left at the end, then they go grab them. But I still think receiver is a position that they could address early on in the draft, if not at number 12.
So are you think there's a cheaper wide receiver option? Are there guys out there, and could we define their range like it needs to be around $5 or $6 million?
I would say it probably needs to be around 5 to 8. I mean, you're looking at a deal for Dante Fowler today that was at $8 million. It honestly surprised me. Now the base is 6, the incentives are worth up to 8. This is the richest outside free agent deal that this team has made in a decade. So they're at least showing a little bit of willingness to open the checkbook for some outside free agents. It just depends on who Steven wants to be quote unquote selectively aggressive for. But I think if you wait a couple of weeks and you see Keenan Allen still on the market and his price has come down to maybe a $5 or $6 million, I could see that being a realistic option.
Nick, this is a question that might be unfair to you, but you do live with this football team. And I was going to ask you, from what we saw yesterday with what happened with Tank and then with Micah, is there something that is it something that was surprising to you that happened that way? Or is it something that you kind of saw that potentially could happen if these two parted ways?
Yeah, it's not necessarily something I could have seen, spill out on Twitter, but it's something that doesn't surprise me at the end of the day. Like when this started to pop off, honestly, when that clip came out of DeMarcus Lawrence, my first thought was Micah's going to say something about this. And surely enough, it turned into a bigger deal than I expected. But when Micah Parsons arrived in that room, you got to think about the dynamics of that room at that time. Micah was the young guy, but he came in, he commanded a lot of respect for his play on the field. First team All-Pro, his first 3 years in the league, and walked in with an alpha presence. already in there in DeMarcus Lawrence. And, DeMarcus Lawrence having, at that time, 7 years under his belt, being that veteran guy, those guys are going to butt heads. Those things happen. That happens in locker rooms across the league. I don't think that they ever really got off on a good foot, and it never really built on from there, and it never really got better from there. But it was never something that crossed the line of professionalism, at least from what I've been told, or crossed the line of boundaries. Like, sure, there were a couple times where they kind of had to be separated, whether it be a heated camp moment or things of that nature. But it was never something that got in the way of play on the field, at least from what I have been told. But this is a situation. You go back to last year. And whenever DeMarcus Lawrence landed on the injured reserve in week 5, and Micah Parsons looked around and he was telling the media, he's like, yeah, this is my chance to step up. And I don't think that was one of those situations where it's like, hey, there's shoes that need to be filled. I'm going to step in and do it. It was more so like, hey, finally I can step in and do it. So I look at it that way. And now this is Micah's opportunity to really lead that room. And he doesn't care who anyone thinks about it, especially DeMarcus Lawrence.
What?
We'll check. How does the rest of the team look at Micah? Is he liked? Is he resented at all for his podcasting? That's such a hot topic.
Nah, the podcast I think is overblown when you talk to players on the team. It's kind of like the tours. You talk to the majority of the players on the team, and they're like, I don't give a damn about that. And you might find one or two. They're like, yeah, it can get annoying, but it is what it is. I know this place. I know how this place operates. But then you look at you look at it in the Micah case. In the defensive line room, he is liked. You look at Chauncey Golston and Osa Digizua that came into this league with him, and they were one of the first ones to jump on Twitter and side with Micah last night. And Chauncey's, at another NFC East team now. You look at Trayvon Diggs, backing him up. Micah's got support on this team. And look, I think anyone can say this in any place that they work. They are going to have people that like them. They're going to have people that don't like them. That's just the nature of human beings, and that's how we, operate in this world. I don't think Micah Parsons is any different. Now, granted, he's an alpha and he's a leader now, and he's going to have to step into a big role off the field defensively moving forward. There's going to be some people that, take that in stride, and there's going to be some people that don't. And, Micah Parsons is not the style for everybody, but I will give Micah credit for how he approached last season. Because if you had told me this time last year that we would be having a conversation about Micah Parsons as a leader, I would have said you were crazy. And so I think it's a credit to him and a credit to, what he did last offseason to prepare for that.
I'm with you. I think we saw a lot of growth last year, but it has also been a lot of talking. Right. And when it comes to leadership, and you've been around a lot of the high school to college to the pros now, Nick, you kind of just naturally have that. It's not, I am a leader. You don't have to tell people I am a leader. Do you think that's something where they're looking on the defensive side? Like, I know Mike is saying that. Dak is the leader on offense. Do they have a leadership void right now on defense?
No, I don't believe so. And I think, again, that's credit to Micah being able to step in and provide that last season in the 12-plus weeks that DeMarcus Lawrence was out. And there was some feeling towards the end that, DeMarcus Lawrence probably could have come back at the end of the season by some players, but he chose not to and preserve his body for his next stop. And, Micah Parsons, he was that leadership, that leader that they were able to turn to and be part of that. So I think, again, last year was a big credit to that. And there's going to be a lot of moving pieces on defense next year because you factor in Overshown and Trayvon Diggs might not be ready for the start of the season. You factor in that there's going to be some new faces on all three levels. They're going to need a guy at the top that can kind of command that, and I think Micah's ready for that.
Nick Harris, Fort Worth Star Telegram, with us here in the Gbag Nation. You've got a new mock draft out, my friend. How did that one go? What's it looking like for the Cowboys?
Yeah, for the Cowboys, I have them picking Teteroa McMillan at 12. It's the receiver out of Arizona, the All-American. As I was hashing it out, that top 12, I had Ashton Genty going to the Raiders at 6. I think that one just makes too much sense right now, especially with what Pete Carroll's trying to do. And then I had Chicago Bears, who could be looking for an offensive weapon potentially. They've done so much to rehaul their offensive line, but they could use one more tackle to go ahead and put that final piece in place. So I have them grabbing Armand Membu out of Missouri at number 10. And the Cowboys, they get the first receiver off the board at number 12. Now, I was trying to go back more so in like the last 5 years. I was like, okay, when did the first receiver come off the board? You can go back a couple of years ago. Jackson Smith and Jigba came off at 20. A couple of years before that, Henry Ruggs came off at 12. So, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that the first receiver comes off at 12, especially when you factor in the top talent in this class and kind of how top heavy it can be at other positions. And that's where I think Teteroa McMillan will be available there at 12. Now, at number 44, I have them circling back for a corner, and I have them going and getting Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. Started his career at Louisiana Lafayette, transferred to Ole Miss, and is one of the more physical corners in this class. I love his size. I love his prototypical size. He's got that 6'1", 195 to 200-pound frame, and he does not mind getting a hand in your face and throwing you off your route right at your release. I think this is going to be a guy that Eberflus really enjoys having if they're able to land on him at 44. And, when I was looking at it, I was coming out of my number 12 pick thinking, okay, they got to go get a running back at 44. And then once I started really going through this list and really starting to see all the teams that need running backs, there is 2 separate opportunities for a run at running back in this draft before 44. You have that 20 to 27 range where Denver's in there. They could probably go ahead and pop on a first-round running back if they want to and go get a guy like Travion Henderson or a Marion Hampton. And then the very top of the second round, you have the Browns who are going to need a running back. How comfortable do they feel about the health of Nick Chubb moving forward? There's a couple more teams there in the 30s that, when I got to 44, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Marion Hampton, they were all off the board. It was really coming down to, okay, do I get Caleb Johnson out of Iowa or do I grab the corner Trey Amos out of Ole Miss? And, understanding how deep this running back class is, go get my running back in the 3rd round. And that's what I chose to do.
I like what you're doing there, Nick. Nick Harris with you here in the nation. Now, do you have a help on why they signed the guard Jones that they did? It seems like they have comparable type of players to be eligible at right guard. What's he do that they wanted to commit to?
Yeah, the veteran experience, I think, is really valued on this team. And you look at the interior offensive line with Zach Martin now out of the question. Tyler Smith is your oldest guy in there. And it feels like Tyler Smith walked in the door yesterday. So, bringing in a veteran like Robert Jones brings in veteran experience, but also kind of brings in, just a guy that's been there, done that, and he started 17 games last year. He's going to be competition for these guys, but, looking around the room, I still think Brock Hoffman is the leader in the clubhouse to take that right guard spot unless they go and grab somebody in the draft that I really like. But there's going to be a lot of bodies in that room competing for a spot at training camp. And to have a veteran in the mix, it certainly elevates the room.
What's Minnesota doing here with Aaron Rodgers? Is this real?
Is this coming out now?
Well, the report today is he's waiting to hear from them as they're considering if they really want him.
I'll tell you what, I know nothing about the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, but I want nothing more than for him to fulfill the Brett Favre prophecy of landing in Minnesota and then maybe getting in some tax issues after his career and just making it perfect.
That would be awesome.
What about the crock shots?
Yeah, the rooster shots. Yeah, we'll see about that.
Appreciate you, Nick. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one, fellas. Thank you.